Hey there, Shakers, and welcome back to another episode of Worth Your Salt, the podcast that's here to supercharge your marketing in the health and wellness space. I'm Jennifer Orqua, StoryBrand Certified Guide, and over the past 2 decades, my team and I have tested, iterated, and learned what works in marketing so you don't have to. Now I'm here to help you apply the marketing systems that help you grow. At Salt Marketing, we're all about helping health and wellness practitioners like you build trust, authority, and a nonstop flow of clients. So if you're ready to take your marketing to the next level, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. So if you're getting inquiries, but they don't turn into paying clients, or people try your classes or come in for a consultation, but they never come back. Your website gets visitors, but no one books. Sounds familiar? If you're a wellness practitioner or a boutique studio owner struggling to attract and retain the right clients, you're not alone. The good news is that there are ways to fix it, and my guest today is here to show you how. In this episode, we're diving into the biggest marketing mistakes studios make, why free trials aren't converting, and how you can stand out in a crowded market to build a thriving, profitable business. Joining me is Saran Glanfield, business consultant, marketing expert, and the founder of Spring 3, where she helps boutique fitness studio owners attract more clients, improve retention, implement time-saving systems to grow a profitable business. With over a decade of experience in the boutique fitness industry and a background in business management from the London School of Economics, Saran combines strategic expertise with real-world insights. A former Pilates instructor herself, she knows firsthand the challenges of running a wellness business and is passionate about helping studio owners break free from burnout and build businesses that truly thrive. If you've ever struggled with marketing, client retention, or scaling your studio, Saran has the proven strategies to help you move forward. Welcome to Worth Your Salt, Saran. I'm so happy for you to be here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here with you.
So many of us start businesses because of a personal experience or challenge. So was there sort of a defining moment in your career that made you realize that boutique studio owners needed more support in marketing and business?
Absolutely. I think the defining moment for me was when I was in New York City, and I will not tell you the year, but it was many years ago. And I had completed my Pilates teacher training program. I was loving being immersed in that world because prior to becoming and training as a Pilates teacher, I worked in finance and marketing on Wall Street. So I'd worked very long hours, sitting down at a desk all day, very intense environment. And I was now able to really interact with people in a more personal way, doing something that is just more worthwhile. And I was really enjoying it and really immersed in it. And over the course of those sort of first sort of year of being post-qualified to teach, I got the opportunity to interact and speak to a lot of peers who'd also gone through that training program alongside me, but also people who I had learned from, who were, in my mind, the most talented, knowledgeable experts in the Pilates world. Yet what I was discovering was that Pilates was still at that time, still very unknown. It was still considered to be an extension of yoga. And I was starting to sort of get, not concerned, but I was starting to see that we were perhaps holding ourselves back because as teachers and studio owners, we were really struggling with being able to market what we do and reach more people and spread the word about how amazing this method was, how impactful it can be to your movement and health and agility and mobility and flexibility. And so what I realized very quickly was that most of the people that I had learned from and the people who, other teachers, were all people who had come from a movement background and who hadn't had that experience that I had been very fortunate to have in a business world, in a marketing world, and having studied management and marketing and finance at the London School of Economics, it was sort of more my wheelhouse and where my brain naturally went. And so I saw so many talented teachers pouring energy into their clients, but struggling to make their businesses profitable, struggling to know where their next client was going to come from. They were working, both ends of the day, 6 a.m. and then 6 p.m. And then, they weren't really getting the recognition, I didn't think, for, just how much time they invested in this craft that they had, they were experts in. As I was talking to one of she's a wonderful friend of mine now. And at the time she was one of my wonderful teachers. She wanted to move from teaching in this studio to owning a studio. And she was just sharing with me, confidentially, just some of the conversations she'd had about buying a studio and what that looked like. And I was just chit-chatting with her about, what she could do and how she could make that really a seamless experience and some things she might want to consider as she took on a new team and new clients and perhaps adjusted their pricing and thought about what the growth and return she might get on her investment in buying that business might look like. She found the conversation so valuable that she called me one day and she was like, look, I need to have you on my side. I need to have you on my team. What can we set up more sort of formal way of working together where you can help me? And so, this was sort of the beginning of potentially, how I could be most helpful to the people who I felt were just such incredibly talented experts. Over time, that conversation with her and then just other conversations I'd happened to have all kind of came together over a very short period of time of just a few months, where all of a sudden I was being asked to support business owners and studio owners and teachers as they develop their business. And so I thought, this might be what I am actually here to do. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely love helping small business owners. I absolutely love helping the movement practitioners and the teachers and the studio owners that are really passionate about what they offer and what they do, but just need a little bit of guidance, a little bit of structure, some resources and some answers and some strategies to help them build consistent and sustainable businesses. And so that was how it all kind of really began.
Yeah, I love that. And her turning point where she came to you and she said, let's make this a more formal arrangement. I think many studio owners see marketing as just another task on their never ending to-do list. Like, I think that's probably what the catalyst was for her. So how do you help them shift their mindset so that growth activity like that becomes a natural part of running their business rather than this extra burden, this thing I have to do?
I think that when you are in any sort of a business that you have founded and that you have a passion for delivery of that service or the fulfillment of that product, you are wearing a lot of hats. And from day one, there's a lot of hats that need to be worn by any CEO. We work on prioritizing the items, the responsibilities and the action items that need to happen in the business. And we work on what is worthwhile doing now, what is worthwhile doing in the future, and what might not actually serve you at all. And there are for sure some activities, and marketing is one of them, which, it is, the consistency really is the name of the game. And there is a mindset shift that has to happen, and it doesn't have to feel heavy, because once you know how it works, and then once you start seeing it works, you actually see it as what I would say, and I think you'd agree, is sort of like the fuel to your business, because you're seeing the results of your efforts. And so once we start to help studio owners to not just do, but also to reflect and to look at the data and to see the impact of their efforts, then it almost is more inspiring and more motivating to continue on than just thinking of marketing as a checklist, as a task.
Yeah, I want to dig back into something that you mentioned just a second ago about consistency, that, consistency is really key, but it's one of the hardest things to maintain, as a small business owner. So do you have systems or habits that you recommend to make, growing that business more effortless, more sustainable?
One of the very sort of first things that I work with the studio owners on is getting really clear on what it is exactly that you are marketing. That really comes down to, your brand values and your brand messaging. And I'm a big fan of taking the time to really dive into what that looks like for you. Because, in this world that we're in today, which is super hyper connected and very short attention spans, but also, in the boutique fitness sector, especially, we're just seeing a tremendous amount of competition for both attention, but also for those dollars. And so we need to make sure that whatever we are doing when it comes to marketing is unique to your business and isn't generic. And so I always start off by working with them on their brand messaging and making sure that they're not just using the same generic content as every other studio in town. And so that's sort of the first part of it that sort of, I think, is really the root of being successful in marketing, because once you know how to talk about what you do, it sort of feeds into a lot of other things that you want to then do with your marketing and what you want your marketing to achieve for you. So once you know what you want to talk about and how to talk about it, then, we want to make sure that we're carving out time to craft content around that brand message. And so I always recommend that my studio owners batch any content creation. Because when you're task switching constantly, when you're teaching or you're, checking emails and responding to scheduling requests, but also you're trying to write that social media post, or you're trying to write that email, that marketing email, or you're trying to put together some sort of an article for your blog, it's really, really challenging to really be productive when you're switching tasks back and forth like that. So I always recommend that my studio owners batch their content, set aside time either once a week or once a month to plan and then create that content in advance. So that way you're not scrambling, every day or however often or very sporadically is what happens, I think, when you want to figure out what to post.
Yeah.
And then I also encourage my studio owners to not reinvent the wheel. So we want to make sure that we are perhaps repurposing or reusing some content that perhaps did very well. And so if you take the time to, say, write a great email, then I would say and recommend that you convert that into perhaps a social media post. Perhaps you convert it into a script that you put alongside a reel. And so we aren't recreating every single time we want to come to put some marketing content together. And what we find for studios is that, we follow a series of events throughout the course of the year, and this goes, I think, for a lot of small businesses. For example, Black Friday is something that happens every November. If you always want to be a part and participate in a Black Friday or offer a Black Friday promotion, then you're going to want to put together an email about that. And if you're going to start from scratch every November thinking about what should I write, then it's going to take a lot longer. But if you're going to reuse perhaps past content, edit it, rewrite it, repurpose it, then you'll find that marketing actually becomes much faster. And so I always think it's not necessarily about doing more, it's just about doing it more efficiently.
Absolutely. And I love that. Those are great habits to get into, following a calendar, batch processing, and getting consistent in that way. But I think that one thing that a lot of practitioners struggle with is differentiation, which I think that a lot of what you spoke about there, it plays into differentiation, because once you get a consistent message going and you can repurpose that. But what are some of the key ways that you find that boutique studio owners are able to stand out and position themselves as the go-to choice in their community? This may go back to what you were saying earlier about having to educate the marketplace on what is this and how does it work. But I would love to hear about some of the ways that you help studio owners differentiate themselves.
Yeah. So I always want to sort of highlight the biggest mistake that I see when it comes to marketing of a boutique fitness studio. There is a tendency to use a label to describe what they do. And, that label could be, we are a Pilates studio. But then there's sort of like a secondary mistake that then comes after that, where folks try to perhaps get more specific with their label, but in doing that actually create a lot of confusion. And so I see a lot of studios say that maybe they are a contemporary Pilates studio or they are a mind-body studio. When folks are, looking for a movement, a place to move their bodies, whether that is a CrossFit gym or a weights class or a spin studio, they are looking to have that box checked of, is this what I'm looking for? Is this a Pilates studio? Yes, it is. Is this a yoga studio? Yes, it is. Is this a CrossFit studio? Yes, it is. But there is also the opportunity in that moment when they land on your website or find you on social media to also add more details that differentiates you from others. And this is where there is opportunity, I think, to do better in most cases. And this is where you want to take your time to craft a more compelling insight into what you have to offer, so that your language and the words you're using is going to really resonate with the types of people that you most want to work with. And so it's not about being the best. It's not about being the biggest. It's about being most relevant to your ideal client. And so when we talk about our Pilates studio and then we kind of add another label that is not actually helpful to refine what that perception is for our clients, it's not actually helping us at all. And so we want to focus more on what the outcome is, because when people come to a boutique fitness studio, they're looking for an outcome. Then if that is different from where they're at today. And we're looking for the hope that you can give them what that outcome is. And so for most fitness studios, that is perhaps improved strength, flexibility, agility, mobility. And so it's important to include that type of language in the description of your studio as well. So you definitely want to elaborate there. And then, I think you'll find that in the world that we're in today, and I'm sure you'll agree that, this isn't just about a tagline anymore. Mm-hmm. It is about the stories. And, we have so many different touch points with new clients and current clients that we want to make sure that we have not just one tagline that we are going to use everywhere necessarily, but we're going to have a toolkit of stories that showcase and articulates the value of what you offer in your studio. Mm-hmm. And so when I work with my studio owners inside of my programs, I take them through the process of really getting clear on what their value proposition is, what they do in their studio. But I don't just give them that tagline that is, you can only really use in like a business plan. I help them to put together content and phrases and stories and copy that you can use in all of the different places that make sense to use in all of those different places that clients will find you that showcase what it is that you do. And I think that is also another sort of a bit of a misconception, is that we have to have one tagline and it has to be exactly 5 words long, and it has to be like short and snappy. And I think that actually, when you're in a relationship business, like so many, studio owners are, you're having conversations with people. And so you want to be able to have more than just a tagline to describe what you do.
Yeah, so true. And you and I were talking about StoryBrand and those constructs, even before we started the interview. But I want to talk a little bit about how to reach those ideal clients. So telling those stories can attract the right people. But if a studio doesn't know where to find those ideal clients, what do you tell them is the first step in identifying them and reaching them more effectively?
Yeah. So when we start working with studio owners, I take them through the process of, I should say, articulating their brand message and understanding the impact of what they do for their clients. That next stage is then sort of thinking outside of the studio in terms of the types of clients that they most want to work with. And, when we think about who that ideal client is, they have usually an idea in their minds about who they've built their studio for. So once we start to work on what that ideal client looks like, not in terms of the demographics, but in terms of what they are thinking and feeling about the services that you offer, then we can start to really craft that messaging in a way that is going to resonate with them. And once we've done that, what we do is then we have a message and we have all of those stories and phrases and copy that we can take to market, right? We can take it and put it in front of those ideal clients. And the better you know your ideal clients, when you're in a local market, you can find them much, much easier once you know who they are and what they're interested in and what they care about. There are obviously so many different channels and platforms available, but we're going to be looking at, not just social media and not just paid ads, but we're also going to be looking at local collaborations, referrals, and all of these partnerships that we can create locally that help to drive that word of mouth and to bring people into your business in a very organic way that, many studio owners aren't so keen on, dancing around on Instagram, but takes often a little bit of effort, but you will find that those connections locally often will fuel your business much faster, honestly, than digital efforts do. And they're much quicker and more impactful. And so, we look at all of these different options and we make sure that, we kind of have a checklist of all the things you have to really optimize your marketing. And then once you have that sort of those avenues in place, then it's about refining what you're doing and refining what you're saying and really that consistency in that outbound marketing activity.
Yeah, that's great. And really inspiring ideas there. I really appreciate the different ways you sort of called out where we can find people where they might be hiding. We're going to take a quick sponsorship break right now. But after the break, I want to dive into the strategies that help turn interest into commitment and help studios grow. We'll be right back.
Salt Marketing is grateful for our sponsors. Today's is Thrive. THYRV. Thrive. The small business management platform that gives you tools to revolutionize your business. Go to saltmarketing.co/thrive-partner.
My name is Dr. Pamela Ekman. I'm a chiropractor here at Love Your Healthy Life. I've been in practice for 22 years. As a chiropractor, I use different management softwares, but the softwares for that can be very expensive. And when I found Thrive was very reasonably priced. Using Thrive has organized my business. It's an all-in-one package now. So my patient data is there, my website, and my social media is all done through Thrive. They even have the ability to do credit cards and billing and stuff like that. So even if the electricity is down, they can do this through their phone. And that is organization beyond belief. The biggest impact that Thrive has had on my business is the reminders for the patients and just having their information available. Thrive reads when their appointments are and just automatically sends out the reminders with no problems. They can actually text back, confirm if that's what we want to do, or just send us a text of what the situation is, or if they're running late, we get all that information. The social media part of Thrive is actually fabulous. My Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those things are all packaged in together. There are pre-written informational pieces about chiropractic that goes out. It's 2, 3, 4 times a week. It depends on the week. I get an email at the beginning of the month. It shows me everything that's going to be posted. It does all the work for you. Since using Thrive, my social media numbers have gone way up. There are lots and lots of things that I don't have to deal with anymore that I used to. Thank you, Thrive.
We're back here on the Worth Your Salt podcast with Saran Glanfield of Spring3, who helps boutique fitness studio owners market and grow. And so, Saran, for boutique studios that want to attract those higher value clients, like those who are willing to invest in memberships or premium services, what strategies have you found that work best?
So it's interesting because in this industry, there is a really wide range of price points. I can say this because I feel like I was been in this industry from its sort of initial early days when the boutique fitness studios that were sort of way back in 10, 12, 15 years ago were differentiating themselves because they didn't have that membership commitment necessary. You could do a drop-in class for a bar class. You could do a drop-in for a spin class, or you could buy a package. The memberships we see today didn't exist then, and actually that was what was so appealing to so many people. Now, the industry has evolved and grown, and we have a lot more franchises than we have ever seen before. And that membership model has trickled into the pricing structure for many of the studio owners. But we've also seen, I should say, has driven down, I think, a lot of price points in the industry. And, the class sizes have gotten bigger as well. And so there's more options than there's ever been before. In addition to that, we're also seeing more options that are more higher priced as well, where there is additional levels of personalization, where there is more one-on-one, where there's more personalized plans being created. And when it comes to those higher value clients, they typically will prioritize quality of and knowledge, experience, and ultimately results. And they're usually people who are much more results driven and more committed to getting those results than folks who do not have or aren't able to pay the higher price points. And so what we see at that top end of that range, or the people who, or if you want to attract, I should say, those higher value clients, it's going to be about increasing that level of personalization, increasing the commitment to results. And because really that's why people are coming into the studio. They're really coming into a studio to get an outcome. They're really there to get results. I mean, we can all move our bodies and work out, on our own. We can all do push-ups and squats at home, right, in our living room. We can put on YouTube and watch any workout video for free right now. But the reason that people come to you or a studio is because they're looking to get results they cannot get on their own. Mm-hmm. So if you want to attract the clients that stay for a long period of time or are paying more, it's going to be about personalization and offering a really elevated experience. And, there are certain people, and it really depends on where in the world you are and where you are in the country, and if you're close to cities and what level of disposable income looks like, and, what people most care about. But most people who are looking for that elevated experience or willing to pay more, often willing to pay more also because they're looking for more convenience. So, it really depends on your clients and your ideal clients and where in the world you are and what what your clientele around you looks like. But typically you want to shift from focusing on the class to class and focusing on the entire experience from start to finish. So, if you want your clients to pay a little bit more, then you're probably going to have to elevate the experience a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And so what sort of common mistakes do you see studios making in their follow-up process? So an initial inquiry comes in. What should they be doing? What mistakes do they make? And what should they be doing instead?
Yeah. So when it comes to follow-ups, there's a lot of different opportunities throughout that customer journey to really be able to make an impact so that clients keep coming back. And, retention in the boutique fitness industry, and I think in many service-based industries, is the name of the game. It is that compounding effect. It is supportive of growth. And with relatively low input, if you can have a system there. And so one of the things, when I look at the entire customer journey from that awareness all the way down through the purchase, all the way down to that sort of really loyal advocate of your business, at every touch point along the way, there is opportunities to engage your clients with messaging and outreach and touch points that are really impactful. Now, once people are active in your business, that's often where I see people kind of just start the studio owners, I should say, to perhaps forget that they've got these great clients and to sort of keep focusing on fueling the funnel and feeding more people into their business. And so they forget about their existing clients who perhaps are coming every week. And this is where there's, I think, opportunity for quite a few different touch points. And one of the things that, especially for boutique fitness studios, where you often have a community of folks who work out together. It's a shared experience. They often are like-minded because there are values that the studio has that they also have that are overlap. And so you often have this great group of like-minded people in one place. And so events and challenges and gamification of the experience really helps to really reinforce that sense of community for studios and to help people to feel that their studio is more than just a place to work out. It's a place to hang out. It's a place to chit chat with your friends or even to bring your friends. So that is sort of one of the things that is so incredibly powerful. And when studio owners first sort of host their first event or host their first challenge, or their buzz and the energy that it fuels for them, it feeds them and feeds their business is really, they always are so excited to see it all kind of play out. And it's not as hard as it might sound to do something really fun. And you can get super creative with it as well, which is something that a lot of my studio owners really enjoy. But then there's also the touch points that exist outside of the business. And so this is where our digital marketing is going to really be important. And this is also where we can often rely on automations to help to make sure that no one is slipping through the cracks. And so you want to make sure that, at the top end of the funnel, you're making it very easy for clients to book if they have to jump through hoops and send different forms. And if it's too complicated, then they won't actually make that final booking. And so you want to make sure that it's your booking process is straightforward and very, very clear as well. And then you want to make sure that your new client or your current clients are not in the studio, that they are hearing from you on a regular basis. And that is your ongoing sort of engagement campaigns. But also in those early days of that customer journey, when they're first new to your studio, you want to make sure you're perhaps giving them a little bit of extra TLC with extra email, phone calls and text messages that really support their journey to moving forward into a package that is more long-term. And so typically we have sort of an introductory offer early on in the customer journey. It's usually the first purchase. And that usually, once that is, the sort of the real conversion is not into the intro offer. The real conversion is going from the intro offer into a long-term package, because that really shows that that client is committed. And so there's a lot that can happen in that intro offer period that really drives folks into that next package. And then you want to make sure that you're always giving them that next step and that you're using all of these touch points to showcase your brand and your business, but also showing those people that are new to your business what's possible for them as your client. So they're staying inspired and they're staying motivated. And this is where, social proof, testimonials can really be very, very powerful.
And I love what you said. Oftentimes this is said in the CrossFit world about needing a third place. So everyone has work, everyone has home, and they need that third place to gather. And so I think for any fitness studio, in any particular specialty, I think that's a really good thing to cultivate, is to be that community, that third place. But I want to go back to what you were saying about automation. What are some essential systems or automations that studio owners can implement to free up their time and continue to grow their business, keep that momentum going, that enthusiasm that you talked about when they get excited about their first event? How do we keep that going with automations?
Yeah, I love the tools that we now have available at the fingertips. Most of the booking software, we used to call them booking software, they're now called studio management software, allow for follow-up automations. Sometimes they're based and tied to the purchase, but sometimes some of the more advanced options, especially some of the newer platforms, allow for automations tied to the client behavior. And so you can really personalize who gets what email or text message based on how much they have or have not interacted with the studio. So, I always say that, to my studio owners, the most valuable piece of marketing real estate to support retention is going to be that first email your client gets, that first touch point that after they have said, yes, I'm interested, I'm going to book into your studio now, because that is when you have the opportunity to really share what you're all about and also to inspire them with that next step. And so that is the most important. And that can be 100% automated very, very easily in most booking softwares. If it's not, then what I would recommend is you have a template that you have as you're in your, Google canned responses or what have you, and that you're able to very quickly send any new client a quick email or a quick hello and introduce them to your studio and what you have to offer, and then give them sort of that guidance as to how to be successful in their first session. So for sure, we want that welcome email to be there. And then during that intro offer, there is, an opportunity to really build rapport with your clients, to inform and educate them about your business with some follow-up touch points as well. And, if the most basic would be then just a series of emails that is spaced out over, week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But the more sort of sophisticated software will allow you to send emails, perhaps during, after their second visit, or perhaps if they haven't used their classes within the first week of purchase, they'll get an email that says, hey, you come on in, we're still waiting to meet you. And you can send sort of a follow-up that is automated, but very specific to their interaction or lack thereof. There is now, when we put together automations for our studio owners, I always say, like, we can keep going forever if you want, because there is always more you can do. But we want to just look at those really important and critical touch points and make sure you've got those in place first. And so it's that welcome email, it's the intro offer period, it's the end of intro offer conversion. And then there's always the, making sure that you're not losing people if they haven't scheduled. And then the win back campaigns that your clients will go into when they perhaps don't fall off the schedule or don't renew their package. You could keep going. I mean, there's the milestones, there's the happy birthday, there's, the first visit, drop in and convert it into a membership. There's so many. And, we, within each sort of one of those journeys or sequences, however which depending on the platform, they all call it different things, but you can keep going forever with that next one. So there's a lot there. But very powerful. Yeah. We love automation, and we talk a lot with our clients about making sure that it's personalized. So if someone perhaps has a certain goal or is interested in a certain service, to being able to segment before the automation ahead of it, so that we can deliver those really good messages. So, if somebody's goal is, say, weight loss, or somebody's goal is strength building, we can send messages that actually resonate with them in that unique personalized way that they need. Yes, it's so important to make it personalized. And I think that's one of the things that it's so easy to do, but often so overlooked. And, all of these platforms have got that generic language in their software already pre-built, but you want to certainly go in there and make sure it sounds like you and it feels like it's coming from you, because the worst thing you can do is to have a generic email that's gone out that says, nothing about your business or is not in your brand tone, because it just undoes all of your marketing efforts up until that point. Yes. And going back to that story brand conversation that we were having earlier, making sure that they feel like they're the hero of their own journey. And, that language is so important. I love all of that. Yeah. All right, Saran, it's time for another quick break. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to the Worth Your Salt podcast, and today I'm talking with Saran Glanfield of Spring 3 about how powerful a good marketing strategy can be for any wellness business. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so be sure to join us over on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook, and let us know how you're attracting high-value clients, fixing your follow-up, and turning inquiries into paying members. All right, we're back. And so before the break, we were talking about automations and systems and processes, and I want to explore a little bit more about how we can fuel growth. So, Saran, for studio owners who feel like they've kind of hit a plateau in revenue or client growth, what are some of the ways that they can break through to that next level?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot that goes into growth, and I think we always look at the data to look at where there might be some hidden opportunities in the business. And when we look at the data, we do a deep dive into the lead generation and acquisition stages. We do a deep dive into the retention elements. And we also do a deep dive into the customer engagement, the client engagement. And we look at all of the reports and all of the numbers. And usually that gives us insight into where there is gaps in their current efforts to grow their revenue in their business. And it's very rare that I see all that and then say, this is it.
Right.
Never, I think that's never happened.
Next, yes.
Never happened. And so, when it comes to first of all, we need to know our numbers. We need to know the data. We need to be able to understand what that data is telling us. And then from there, we can formulate an action plan for what growth looks like. So, And I think everybody has a different sense as to what they want their growth to look like, because everybody, I think, has a different idea about what success looks like for them. And some studio owners, I have many studio owners who are women who are of, childbearing age. They want to have a baby, or they've just had a baby, or they have children who are school age, and they want to be with their children. And so success for them might look very different from someone who is not in that stage of life, or is past that stage of life, right? And I've also got studio owners who are thinking about retiring and want to sell their studio. And so that is ultimately their version and vision for success for themselves. I think one of the most wonderful things about owning your own business is you get to decide what success looks like for you. Mm-hmm. And when I work with studio owners, I don't tell them, okay, there's one way to grow and you have to grow, because folks are often saying to me, well, actually, Saran, I want my studio to stay as it is, and I just want to step out of it. I'm happy with what I'm making, and I just want to take time off. And I'm like, great, let's make that happen too. So there's a lot that goes into, what does success look like and how to be successful, because it often comes from what it is that you genuinely want as a business owner. Most people want to make more money and to bring home a higher income. And so, once we have that data, then we'll look at what those different strategies look like. And I think that, regardless of what success looks like for you and what you want to get from your business, and regardless as to the current stage of your business or what revenue level you're at right now, I think that the best thing you can do for yourself if you want to grow your business is to invest in your business skill set. And that means you have to really understand the numbers. You have to understand what marketing looks like, the impact of your marketing, but also you have to invest in developing the skills to hire and lead and manage your time and manage your focus and plan ahead. And so as the CEO of your business, there needs to be time carved out to not just work in your business, but also to work on your business, because without that time, growth will always be stagnant.
So tell me a little bit about your Thrive program. You help studios consistently fill their classes, grow their studio. Give us a high level overview of your program, maybe some insight into how you teach that.
Yeah, sure. So Thrive is a business coaching program for boutique fitness studio owners. And inside we focus on the core elements that kind of work as an ecosystem to fuel growth and success in your unique business. And that means that we focus on the lead generation and client acquisition, we focus on retention, and then we focus on systems, on leadership, and on management. And we do that in a sort of a rotational fashion so that we aren't leaving any stone left unturned, because those sort of three pillars are kind of like a three-legged stool. So often people are really good at lead generation, are really good at retention, but have no systems in place. So their business feels chaotic and overwhelming, and they're about to just throw in the towel and walk away. Or we've got folks who are really good at retention and really, really organized because perhaps they are working very closely with their clients, maybe even one-on-one, but they struggle with lead generation and client acquisition. And so the program, in terms of the training that we do inside, helps to refine all of the strategies across all of those three pillars so that we can see very consistent, but also very sustainable growth. Now, we also support our studios owners to develop their own growth action plan. And so when you join Thrive, we take you through a process of crafting your 90-day action plan so that you have a step-by-step, literally a step-by-step, week by week, where to focus. Because I think there's always this, so much to do that it's very challenging to break it down into, okay, well, what's the most important thing to do right now? And we tend to lean towards doing things that we want to do and avoid the things that we don't really want to do or don't know how to do. And that's usually what the business needs us to focus on most. So we take them step by step through putting together that growth plan. And then we have weekly calls with me and my team where we answer the questions around, okay, I think I need to improve my marketing messaging, or now I have my marketing messaging, where should I put it? Or, and so we're all constantly supporting our studio owners as they grow, whatever the stage of business is that they are at. And so it's kind of like an incubator where studios will join and they stay and they learn how to read their numbers. They implement these great CEO habits of carving out time to plan. They have a place to go to ask their questions and get answers. And then we have 100 resources in our portal that are playbooks for how to craft a great introductory offer, what those automations that you need in your business look like, how to hire a great teacher, how to hire a great front desk person, and sort of everything in between that you can think of that you might need to grow a thriving boutique fitness studio.
That sounds amazing. So I know too that you have your own podcast, the Pilates Business Podcast. I'm wondering if there are any unexpected or overlooked marketing channels like podcasting that studio owners should be tapping into to reach the right audience.
Yeah, I mean, so it's so many different ways that you can reach people these days. And I think, all of them have their merits, but also we want to make sure that we're focusing on, I think for most studio owners, they don't have so much time to spend on marketing. I don't want studio owners to be spending 20 hours a week on marketing, because that means that they're probably missing out on other things in their business. And so I want to make sure that studio owners are as efficient and effective as possible with the time they're spending on their marketing, which means we need to see a return on investment of time. And so when it comes to marketing channels, we want to be most where our clients are at. And so if your clients are, if you are in a local market, podcasting is fun. Let me tell you, I love my podcasting.
Right.
I love it. But if you're in a local market, to really get your listener level up high enough to really be a lead generator for your business, it would be very challenging to do that. So by all means, if it's something you enjoy, do it. But if podcasting specifically, since you mentioned it, I think it's a challenge for it to be actually a lead generator for a business. But it's a great way to stay connected with your clients. It could be a great retention tool if it's something that you're keen to do. So I always say, be where your clients are. And I think that most importantly, I think in the world that we're in today, that you have to be mindful of your ability to show up on search engines, and that you are being consistent with just the visibility of your business. And so there are some certain things that you certainly want to make sure you're doing to make sure you're showing up when people are actually even just looking for maybe Pilates or CrossFit near me, that your business and your studio is showing up.
So if you were to say that a studio owner, let's say they can only focus on one thing this year, what would you tell them to do?
Ooh, one thing. I think brand-centric marketing messaging is more powerful and needed than ever before. So I certainly would start with that. And if I could add another one, then I would say share that brand-centric marketing messaging in every single possible channel that you can.
Messaging first, though. I like that.
Yes.
Of course, I want to let everyone know that a link to the Spring 3 website, your Thrive program, and everything that we're talking about today is going to be over on our website at saltmarketing.co. But right now it is time for our lightning round questions. These are a few quick questions I like to ask of every guest. Saran, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First question is, what's something about you that often surprises people?
Well, I think people often assume that I'm super extroverted because I have a podcast and, I have a lot of people that I'm active and online and all the things, but I'm naturally kind of I recharge with quiet time. I need quiet time every day. I need downtime and processing time. So I think people, when they meet me, are often surprised that I'm not this super outgoing, super chatty person, that actually I'm kind of a little bit quiet.
But you are quite friendly and easy to talk
to. Very friendly, but a little bit quiet.
All right. Next question is, what is your favorite thing about the work that you do?
Oh, when I see studio owners realize that having and owning and growing a business does not have to be overwhelming and exhausting. When they start to see and get that sort of the light comes on, where they are energized by their business because perhaps they found themselves not feeling as fulfilled. Oh, it's just amazing. And then when they come to me and they say, I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm doing this. I can't believe I'm taking time off. I can't believe that I'm making the money I'm making. And their eyes are alive and they're smiling, and it's just the best. The best.
Absolutely. All right. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I think that it's the same as the advice as I gave earlier. I think that is that, you got to be consistent. You got to show up and you got to be consistent. It's not always fun, but you just have to show up, be consistent.
I love that. Finally, who's inspiring you right now? What podcast you're listening to, or maybe like the best book that you've read recently?
Just started to read the book by Mel Robbins that she just released called Let Them. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
absolutely.
Everyone's heard of it. And it's interesting because it's about letting go of a lot of the stresses that come with trying to understand like why people behave the way they behave. Thinking about how we can apply it more into the studio owners that I support, because often when you're working very closely with a client, when I see my studio owners come to me and they say, well, this client said this or did this or didn't come back, and I don't know why, and I just feel like I did something wrong. And there's a very personal element to the work that we do because we're working so closely with our clients. And I think that when you realize that you can just let go of that, it's so powerful. It just frees you up. It frees you up in so many different ways. So
definitely recommend that book highly.
Yeah.
All right, Saran, thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode of Worth Your Salt. I have truly enjoyed our conversation.
Same here. Thank you so much for having me.
I also want to thank you, Salt Nation. If you have a great success story, I'd love to talk with you and share it. So tell us about why you're worth your salt by emailing us at grow@saltmarketing.co. Of course, be sure to subscribe to Worth Your Salt so you never miss an episode. Finally, leave us a review or give the show a handful of stars wherever you get your content. That's all for this episode of Worth Your Salt. Be sure to join me again next time. In the meantime, let's get out there and shake things up.